The air in Alexandria, Egypt, summer of 1986. It's that, thick, humid coastal air, smells of salt and maybe a little bit of diesel from the port.
Mm.
And you just have to picture this totally mundane scene. People are walking along the coast, gulls overhead, nothing is out of place.
Right, just a normal day.
Until someone notices something near the shoreline. And it's not driftwood or, a lost towel. It's a suitcase, a very large, very expensive-looking travel bag, and it's just been left there.
Deliberately abandoned. It was heavy, way too heavy. And when law enforcement finally gets it open, any sense of normalcy that was left on that coastline just shatters.
Because inside, they find human remains.
And the detail here is just, it's horrific. These aren't intact remains. The body had been methodically, almost clinically dismembered, cut into these small pieces.
The head was missing. The attacker had clearly gone to incredible lengths to destroy any identifying features. The police knew right away this wasn't a crime of passion. This was calculated.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The reaction in Alexandria was instantaneous. I mean, this level of violence, this cold dismemberment, it just wasn't something people were used to.
That must have been terrifying.
Oh, complete panic. The whisper started immediately that there's a lunatic, a serial killer on the loose. And the public pressure on the authorities was just immense. They had this horrifying crime, but no victim, no name.
And that's the ultimate dead end for an investigation, isn't it? If you don't know who the victim is, where do you even begin to look for a killer?
Exactly. But this is where they caught their first, and really their only major break. As they were painstakingly going through the remains, they found one piece that was sort of miraculously intact enough to be useful.
What was it?
A complete palm print.
Wow. Not just a fingerprint, the whole palm.
The whole palm, which from that level of fragmentation was just an incredible piece of forensic luck. They ran it against the National Registry, and they got a hit.
An identity.
An identity. The victim was a man named Elhamy Farag. He was known in certain circles, presented himself as this thriving businessman. But as the police started digging into his life, it became very clear his real job was something far more sinister.
So the victim wasn't just some random person. He was, let's say, notorious to a select few. The police, tracing his last known movements, they pretty quickly zeroed in on the woman he was last seen with.
But to understand the sheer violence that followed, you really have to rewind 5 years to 1981 and meet a young woman named Nahed Al-Qaffas.
Nahed was just 18 at the time. She's described as beautiful, looked older than her age, but she came from a very modest family in Alexandria, only had a middle school education.
But the one thing that defined her, her key trait, was this intense ambition. She was just desperate to climb out of poverty and find a life of wealth, which, meant she was constantly turning down local guys who just didn't have the financial prospects she was looking for.
She's looking for a guarantee?
She was, and she thought she found it. A marriage proposal from an Arab national, a businessman about 20 years older than her. He promised her total financial security, and she accepted immediately. It was her ticket out.
So she leaves Alexandria behind and moves to Cairo.
And not just anywhere in Cairo. She moves into this huge, luxurious apartment in one of the city's most affluent districts. For 5 years, she lived that life. She had a daughter with him, enjoyed all the comfort he provided.
But there was a catch.
There was. The reality of that life was total isolation. Her husband was a good man, respectable, but his business meant he was always traveling. She was alone, a lot.
And she was still young. She felt like she was missing out on her youth.
Exactly. The isolation just wasn't worth the comfort anymore, so she starts asking for a divorce.
And this is such a critical point in the story because what happened next sets the stage for the entire tragedy.
It really does. Her first husband, he was a man of integrity. He had made a promise to secure her future, and he kept it, even in divorce. The settlement she got in 1986 was it was astonishing.
It wasn't just a good settlement. It made her an independently wealthy woman overnight.
He transferred the title of that enormous Cairo apartment directly to her. He gave her a car. He set up a huge bank deposit for her and their daughter. And on top of all that, she kept gold and jewelry worth over 100,000 Egyptian pounds at the time.
I mean, to put that in perspective for you, the source material notes that her total wealth was equivalent to over 15 million Egyptian pounds today.
So she wasn't just comfortable, she was set for life. She had the wealth she'd always dreamed of, she was still young, and she was completely independent.
It's an unbelievable position to be in. But even with all that financial security, she was still lonely, still isolated. She was looking for romance, for a connection.
And that made her a perfect target. Divorced, wealthy, and vulnerable. A predator's dream.
This is when she decides to take a train back to Alexandria to visit her family. And she's, of course, wearing her expensive jewelry. She looks exactly like what she is.
A wealthy, independent woman. And who happens to be on that train?
Elhamy Farag.
The man whose palm print would solve his own murder. He was described as incredibly charming, handsome, the perfect front. He approaches her, introduces himself as a big-shot businessman with major investments in Alexandria.
And he's a professional. He's not just charming her. He's gathering intel.
Instantly, he gets all the key details. Divorced? Check. Has her own money? Check. Her family is modest, so they're probably not going to interfere? Check. He gets her number, insists on driving her home. He creates this immediate sense of substance and reliability.
The courtship was a whirlwind. Nahed was so ready for the romance he was selling, and he played the part of the ambitious, stable partner just perfectly.
They're talking about all his supposed big investment projects, and when he proposes, she says yes almost immediately. She thinks she's found it all.
But the con was already underway. As soon as they're married, the pressure starts.
He starts asking about her assets. Why is all this money just sitting in a bank? It's useless. He tells her that to build a real future together, they need to put that money to work.
He sells it as a partnership. Let's build our empire together.
But his goal was total control. And this brings us to the single most devastating move he made. He convinced her to grant him a general power of attorney over all of her assets.
And we need to be really clear for you what that means. This isn't just letting him check her bank balance.
No. This means she legally handed him the ability to manage, sell, and liquidate her entire financial existence. Her signature wasn't needed for anything anymore. He had the keys to her kingdom.
And once he had those keys, the speed of the destruction was just breathtaking.
He moved immediately. Within days, sometimes hours, it was all over. First, he sells that incredibly valuable Cairo apartment.
Gone.
Then he takes the money from that sale and buys a new villa in King Marriott, Alexandria. But, and it's the whole game, he registers it exclusively in his name.
He's laundered her biggest asset into a property that is now legally his.
Exactly. Then the car she owned. He just gives it away to a relative.
Unbelievable.
All the gold and jewelry.
Yeah.
Sold. And then he just starts systematically draining her bank accounts until there's nothing left. It was a complete financial erasure.
At first, she must have been confused, maybe trying to believe his explanation.
Well, yeah. But then the psychological abuse starts. His whole demeanor changes. And then people start showing up at the villa. Strangers knocking on the door, demanding money, and screaming that Elhamy is a fraud.
That must have been terrifying. How did he explain that away?
He had a script ready. He'd just dismissed them as enemies of success, people who were jealous of him and trying to ruin his reputation. And for a while, she tried to believe him. She had to.
But eventually, the truth just becomes unavoidable. She realizes she's been stripped of everything, her property, her savings, her security. It's all gone.
And she's trapped. She has to keep living with him in the villa that he bought with her money, just clinging to this fading hope that she can somehow get some of it back.
The moment the money ran out, the mask came off completely.
Oh, yeah. The charming businessman was gone. The verbal abuse became constant. And he started making these bizarre and illicit demands in their intimate life, things Nahed found just completely loathsome. She was financially ruined, psychologically tortured, and utterly trapped.
A prisoner in a house built from the rubble of her own life. She was just trying to endure, but any situation like that has a breaking point.
And that absolute breaking point came when she stepped outside the villa for just a moment and heard her daughter scream.
She runs back inside and finds the ultimate betrayal. Her young daughter's clothes are torn. Elhamy was trying to sexually assault the child.
In that single horrifying moment, Nahed makes a tactical decision. A really brilliant, if chilling one. She knows if she attacks him right then, he'll overpower them both.
So what'd she do?
She does the opposite of what you'd expect. She hits her own daughter. She falsely blames the child for making a scene, creating a distraction that lets her get the girl away from him without starting a physical fight. Then she tells her daughter, "Pack your things now."
Her entire focus just shifts. It's not about her own survival anymore. It's about protecting her child.
She takes her daughter straight to her grandmother's house in Alexandria. Makes sure she's safe, secure, out of his reach. And once that's done, she goes back to the villa. Alone.
And she's not going back to recover her money.
No, she's going back for revenge.
She knew his habits, knew he frequently took sedatives, other drugs.
So she prepares some juice, laces it with a heavy dose of a sleeping agent, and she waits.
Once he's passed out in bed, she gets a knife. And the violence that follows isn't random, it's specific. Each stab is for a different betrayal.
That's how the sources frame it. One for the financial ruin, one for the future he stole from her, and the final, deepest one for what he tried to do to her daughter.
But even then, she wasn't finished. Her calculation went further. She needed to make sure he could never be identified.
That's when she got the hatchet, the sator. She methodically dismembered his body into those small, unrecognizable pieces, all to guarantee his anonymity.
She then executed a perfect cleanup of the crime scene, packed the remains into that travel bag, and drove to the coast. She abandoned the suitcase and then just went back to her mother's house.
The police, of course, with Elhamy's ID, traced him back to Nahed pretty quickly. She denied everything at first, but the investigation into Elhamy's life started turning up a pattern, a shocking pattern that changed everything.
They realized he wasn't just some shady businessman.
He was a career criminal, a professional predator who specialized in marital fraud. The investigation found that Nahed wasn't his first victim, or his second. She was the 17th woman he had defrauded using the exact same playbook.
17.
17 other women. The police realized they weren't dealing with a simple murderer. They were dealing with the final desperate act of a woman who had been pushed far beyond her breaking point.
And this is when the whole case explodes into the public consciousness.
It becomes this huge social commentary. The truth about Elhamy's life led to this completely unprecedented public reaction. I mean, think about it. One of the most gruesome crimes imaginable.
And the public overwhelmingly sided with the killer.
Overwhelmingly. People felt this deep, visceral sympathy for Nahed. Her story, the fraud, the abuse, the final violation against her child, it became a rallying cry.
There wasn't a single good word said about Elhamy Farag. The moral horror of what he did completely overshadowed the horror of how he died.
And the court was in a tough position, facing that public pressure and the undeniable evidence of mitigating circumstances.
She was initially sentenced to death, given the calculated nature of the murder and dismemberment.
But that was almost immediately commuted to life in prison, so 25 years. And then later, it was reduced again to just 15 years, which, for a crime this horrific, was just extraordinary leniency.
Nahed Al-Qaffas became a kind of symbol, didn't she? A symbol of what happens when public justice and the strict letter of the law collide.
She was really the first defendant in a crime of this scale to get that kind of massive public support, fundamentally because the moral character of her victim was just so completely bankrupt.
The case really forces you to grapple with the line between law and morality. What happens when a betrayal is so absolute? When a criminal systematically steals a person's entire life and leaves them with nothing?
And it leaves you with a question to really think about. How much does the nature of the victim change how we judge the crime? At what point does a society agree that the life that was stolen, the security, the future, the peace of mind, weighs more than the life that was violently taken in the end?